Hi guys, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Okay guys, I've got an article here and I think this is something that you're definitely going to want to hear about. So we've got Flare CEO explains how Flare is unlocking new use cases for XRP. Okay, so the CEO is Hugo Filion, I believe, and basically he's explaining what Flare's role is in terms of expanding XRP's use cases. And I'll be honest with you, this is really big, and I have to say, ever since Flare have come out and been in development, one of the things that I've just noticed is that Hugo seems to be a really big fan of XRP. Like, he seems to really want to help push XRP. And listen, XRP is a top 5 crypto asset. It's one of the earlier stages, like one of the earlier OG cryptos, and it continues to be successful. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's any, it's not weird, but it's just nice to see that he seems so, so willing and wanting to help XRP increase. Maybe it's because it's one hand washes the other. Obviously, as they use XRP, they will use Flare to do this, right? Because in terms of what they will provide, you will still need to use Flare as well. So maybe they're just thinking, in conjunction with XRP, it's going to help our utility as well. So ultimately, it will also, as a byproduct, also help Flare. But either way, it's great to see. So let's get into what we're talking about here. So Filion described Flare as a layer 1 network focusing on interoperability and data protocols. One of its key products is FXRP, a bridge that connects XRP ledger to the Flare network. So through FXRP, XRP can be used in smart contract applications. This opens the door to DeFi services that are not available directly on the XRP ledger. For example, users can use XRP as collateral, borrow against it, access stablecoins, and interact with tokenized assets. These assets can include commodities such as gold and other real-world assets. According to Filion, these tools allow XRP holders to do more with their tokens instead of simply holding them. Okay, so let's stop there. Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the big things with regards to XRP. So for those who are not really aware, XRP doesn't have smart contract functionality. Now, this is something that they have been looking into a lot more recently. The reason why they didn't want to add smart contract functionality to it is because their main function at the time, the main use case that I was really going for, was cross-border payments. And they were basically worried that if they added smart contracts into the network, that could end up affecting using XRP for cross-border payments. And obviously, as that was their main use case that I was really trying to, gain success from and have XRP utilized for, they didn't want to have anything that could potentially mess that up. And I think that's completely understandable, right? Like, if at the time you're thinking cross-border payments is going to be your big, kind of claim to fame with the token, you're not going to want to add something to the network that could completely ruin that. Of course not, right? So they obviously was thinking more from the cross-border payments aspect and was thinking, no, let's leave smart contracts out of this and we'll focus more on the cross-border payments. Now, as we've seen over time, stablecoins are starting to play a role in this. XRP is not just looking at cross-border payments anymore, it's looking to other use cases as well to be successful. And so I think they're obviously looking at it a bit differently now. I still think they do want to make sure that it doesn't affect the impact of cross-border payments, but I think they're a bit more open to it because I've heard that they're trying to add a light smart contract protocol to the network. So that's something that they have been contemplating themselves. But let's just say they decide not to do that because it's not set in stone as of right now. Well, then you can still look at going through Flare, right? So you have your FXRP, which is going to be obviously Flare XRP. And then basically this will actually allow XRP to then have smart contract functionality. And that allows you to get into the world of DeFi. Now, I don't know how well versed you guys are with DeFi. In the last bull run, DeFi was the big thing. DeFi was absolutely massive, and I was a part of DeFi, and I've seen it. And yes, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of ones that were like hype and stuff that came in and went. If you think of Terra Luna, that was basically like a DeFi protocol, like you invest in it into the token, you have the stablecoin, and it was basically helping you generate a yield continuously. There's also something called node season. I don't know if you heard about that, where you invest in a node and then that node generates a yield for you over time. So there was different things where you could make money. DeFi is a massive area because it's that kind of thing of people can actually do things as they want to. So when you think about centralized finance, you've got to think like the banks are going to want to do checks on you. They might not think you qualify. You know, there could be reasons as to why they reject you having basically like a loan or that kind of thing, or they may just not want to give you a certain amount of money that you was hoping to get. With this, it's different, right? There's no middleman there to do any types of checks on you or anything like that. As long as you've got the collateral to back it up, then that's fine, right? Now, obviously, you've got to be careful and know what you're doing, because you could lose your collateral if you don't do it, properly. But you're kind of given that grace of, we're not going to do checks on you. We're not doing KYC checks or anything like that. We're just, you just provide us with the collateral. You've got your, whatever you want in terms of DeFi. So you've got a lot more freedom and a lot more access, right? So in regards to smart contracts, yes, I do think this is a very big thing for XRP, because it's something that it is lacking in. And I definitely think in terms of DeFi, it could open up a very big door, because that's what really helped Ethereum get big. To be honest with you, like Ethereum was massive in the last bull run. So as I say, I participated in DeFi projects in the last bull run. Some were successful, some weren't. I managed to get some success out of some projects. There was one where I was lucky enough to get success out of it before it collapsed. So yes, it was, it fell apart in the end. Not that it was a rug pull, but it did fall apart in the end. I'd say it was kind of more like a Ponzi scheme, to be honest with you. And just for the record, I didn't know it was a Ponzi scheme at the time, of course, so I wasn't just willingly going into it that way with that thought process. But it just kind of fell apart later on, and obviously that's when we started to find out more information and learn about it. But yeah, I managed to get out luckily before it collapsed, so I actually made like a good amount of profit out of that. But I was lucky, right? That was like hot potato. I managed to get out. Unfortunately, some people, were invested and did lose money. That did happen for some people. So obviously I feel for them. This is what happens though when you come into an area where, like you're left to your own devices. Like you have got to kind of be careful. Like the thing with crypto is, the good and the bad thing is, you have got your freedom to do what you want, but you've also got to be careful, because you have got the freedom to do what you want, and you have got to, try and do your own due diligence as much as you can to try and, invest wisely. But like, you can always make mistakes, right? Like you never know, something can look really great. Like, to be honest with you, Terra Luna looked absolutely amazing at the time. I wasn't in Terra Luna, but I remember how successful it was, and I was thinking, man, that's like a really good project, like for how it was doing. And look how that ended up. Even in terms of, is it FTX that Sam Bankman-Fried had? Like, look how legitimate that seemed at the time, and then look what happened. So even like the biggest platforms can, have a fall from grace. You just never know, but you've got to just invest as best as you can. So this is where we get on to the next part that I just wanted to get to. And this is the real thing that I really wanted you guys to see, because this is where you've got a chance to really make money. So new yield opportunities for XRP holders. Fillion also highlighted yield generation as an important use case. Through Flare, users can deposit XRP as collateral to borrow stablecoins. They can then deploy those stablecoins into other markets that offer returns. This approach allows users to earn yield while still maintaining exposure to their XRP holdings. Yeah, so that's a real big one, to be honest with you. So this is where, like the Clarity Act is such a big deal, because one of the things that they want to try and stop with stablecoins is earning a yield. So this is where you could look at this, and this could be such a huge opportunity. So as they said there, like imagine you've got, let's just give a ballpark figure. This is not me saying this is what I have or what you guys have got. Obviously neither of us know what we have, but let's say you've got just 10,000 XRP. Just say that, right? You could say, okay, let me borrow against 5,000 worth of my XRP. I'll keep the 5,000 just to keep it as safe, but I'll use the other 5,000 to borrow against it, right? So you borrow against that 5,000 worth of XRP, right? Now that's going to be a loan. Of course, you're going to have to pay it back. So again, this is why I say you've got to do your own research to make sure you understand how this works and what the rules and stipulations will be, because it can differ. So obviously check that out before you do this. But you could borrow against 5,000 of your XRP. They give you that in stablecoins, right? So you now have got these stablecoins, and you're going to have to pay back a monthly amount each month to cover off this loan that they've given you in stablecoins, right? So as long as you pay off that loan, you won't lose your XRP, right? Also, if it's a loan, you don't pay tax, because you don't pay tax on debt. Loan is classed as a debt, right? It's not classed as you making money. So if you have a loan and you pay it all back, you don't get liquidated, that won't be classed as a taxable event. but if you get liquidated, you might have to pay tax. So again, just do your own research, learn about that. But you could borrow against that 5,000 XRP. So let's just say you get whatever amount back in stablecoin. So usually you have to look at the, is it LTV or LVT, loan to value ratio, basically. So let's just say you get your, whatever value worth of stablecoins in that amount, okay, for the XRP that you've put up. Well, what you could do with those stablecoins is you could put them into places that generate you like a monthly yield, right? So, there are exchanges that say, we'll give you like, for example, 5% for giving up X amount of stablecoins. So you could basically borrow against the XRP, get the stablecoins, put the stablecoins into like an exchange, for example, earn the monthly yield from those exchanges, use that monthly yield to pay back some of the loan. And then if you are getting more back than what the loan is worth, the rest you're making as profit. So then you're using the yield to pay back the loan, and you're also making a profit on top. And then after you've paid the whole loan back, you've still got your XRP. So do you see how that can actually be a way where you could just make money? And this is what I'm saying about the importance of the Clarity Act, because if they ban stablecoins from earning a yield, that completely shuts off that type of avenue. So this is why, we have got to be careful with this, the Clarity Act. I hope that it is beneficial for us and not something that really shuts us out again. But yes, that's a clear way that you could potentially make profit with XRP, and you're not even having to sell your XRP, and you're not even having to lose money, you're making money. So this is where, the XRP could be working for you, just, sitting around, you've got it held up as collateral, but as long as you're paying the money back of the loan, it's still there, it's still yours, and you're making profit on top. So, that profit you could make, you could then use that to, do whatever you want with it, right? Save it up, buy more crypto, you could, go give yourself a holiday, whatever, who knows? But the point is, you're making money. You're making money. So that's a huge opportunity. So this is the kind of thing that, what Flare can actually help with XRP, and that's why I do like Flare and what they're doing, because they are providing whole new, utility cases for XRP. They're opening more doors, and I think XRP has such a huge community. I think DeFi could be massive for them because there's such a huge community in XRP. So the amount of people that would want to get involved with this kind of thing, I think it could be absolutely massive. So yeah, this is definitely something that I think is big, and it's definitely something that's going to open many more doors for XRP. So I think it's definitely something that you should keep an eye on. Once again, just make sure that you do your own research, because it's not as simple as obviously you just borrow against it and everything's fine. You've got to know if XRP's price drops dramatically, are you going to get automatically liquidated, or do you have a time where you can put X amount back to cover that, to cover the dramatic price decrease? You've got to understand all these things. So please just make sure you do your own research as well. But huge opportunities here, so I thought this was worth sharing. I'll leave it there. If you did like this video, please remember to like, comment and subscribe so you can be updated for future XRP content. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be alerted on when I do drop a new video. Thank you very much for watching this, and I'll see you all on the next one.